Welcome to the first meeting of the Education Assessment and Accountability Review Subcommittee. Call this meeting to order. Jay, can you call the roll, please?
Senator Neal. Senator Titchener. Senator West. Representative Banta.
Present.
Representative Bojanowski.
Here.
Representative Riley. Co-Chair Deneen.
Here.
Co-Chair Truitt.
Here.
I remind everybody to please silence your cell phone as we conduct our meeting today. All materials have been sent electronically via email and will be available on the committee's LRC website. We have a little bit of housekeeping to do here before we get started with our presentations today, and that is the elections of our co-chairs. And first order of business, it's required by statute to get this done. So House members will elect a House co-chair, and Senate member will elect the Senate co-chair. A quorum is 3 of each chamber. So I don't know if we have that for Senate. But and we'll have to probably pause this until we have a quorum at our next meeting. But we will address this issue with both chambers at the next meeting. Everybody good with that? We can do the House today? We have? Yes, we do. All right. Let's go ahead and get the House done then so that he can chair our next meeting. Do I have a motion or nomination?
I'd like to nominate Representative Truitt.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. A vote. Jay, can you call that roll?
Senator Neal.
No, just the House. Just House members.
Okay. Representative Banta.
Yes.
Representative Bojanowski.
Yes.
Representative Riley.
Yes.
Co-Chair Truitt.
Yes.
All right. Welcome aboard.
There's our
All right. We do have a quorum here. Come on in, Senator West. We won't point you out. We're just all waiting. We thank you for being here. That's quite all right, sir. We are just getting through some formal procedures here. And we do need a nomination for the co-chair from the Senate side now that we have 3 members here. Do I have a nomination?
I would like to nominate Senator Deneen as co-chair for the Senate.
Do I have a second? All right. Oh, sorry, I can't run my own election there, Senator Representative Truitt. That'd be awesome if I could, but I'm going to let you go ahead and do that.
Let me take care of that if you don't care, Senator.
Thank you.
So do we have a nomination for co-chair of the Years Committee from any Senate member?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Apologize.
I would like to again nominate Senator Deneen as co-chair.
Second.
For the vote.
All right, let's go ahead and have a vote. Could you call for the vote?
Senator Neal. Senator Titchener. Senator West. Senator Co-Chair Deneen.
Aye. All right. With that said, our co-chairs are all in place, and all that formality is taken care of, and we appreciate your patience on that through a little rocky procedural there, but we've got it done. Now today we have on the agenda the Office of Educational Accountability annual report. We have 2 members with us this morning. Would you please identify yourself for the record?
I'm Brian Jones. I'm the Acting Deputy Director for OEA.
Deborah Nelson, OEA Research Division Director.
All right, you may begin your presentation today.
Thank you. Congratulations to the co-chairs on your elections and members of the committee. Again, I'm Brian Jones. I'm the Acting Deputy Director for OEA. I'm going to give a brief overview of the Investigations Division at OEA. OEA experienced quite a bit of turnover in the last year or so. Marcia Seiler, who was our deputy director, retired. We had 2 investigators who took other jobs. Our research manager took another position with LRC, and then we had a researcher retire. But the organization is still the same. There's an investigations division and there's a research division. In addition to being the acting deputy director, I'm still the investigations manager, and Dr. Deborah Nelson, who you just met, is in charge of research. As far as investigations goes, in 2024, we had 5 full-time investigators and 1 part-timer. We now have 4 full-timers, and we don't have any part-time investigators at the moment. I do plan on replacing the full-time investigator vacancy within the next few months. As far as how investigations go, you folks probably know that we act on written complaints. Doesn't mean that people don't call us on the phone and complain, but we tell them before we can take action on something, we need a written complaint. We need some facts that we can evaluate, and also to make sure that the complainant really wants to put some skin in the game. As far as the volume goes, the volume of complaints has mercifully declined in the last couple of years from an all-time high in 2023 of 805. In 2024, it was 738. And for the first half of this year, it stands at 325, which would put us on track for 658, which is a welcome decline. And again, we're not any busier at OEA than anybody else in LRC. I'm just pointing out that it is a heavy volume of complaints. We carry actively about 30 cases at any given time, and certainly we don't open up cases on all those complaints, only a fraction of them. And I review every complaint that comes in, and if we decide that it's worthy enough of opening up a case, I'll assign 2 investigators to it. They will go to the district, they'll interview people, collect relevant documents and information. They come back home and we do a preliminary report, and we send that to the district, so that gives them another opportunity to provide us information about the investigation. Then we do a final report, and the final report will reflect just what we found. Hopefully there's not a violation of education law, and that will be shown in the report. If there is a violation, what we're trying to do is we're not trying to hammer anybody. We're just trying to get people in compliance with education law. So if there is a violation, we mandate that there's training. Training in that education law is usually provided by KDE or the School Boards Association. I've used co-ops, I've used private counsel before. But we just want to get people in compliance with the law and hope that the situation is remedied and that it doesn't happen again. If it's a really serious matter, we can refer it elsewhere even though we've investigated it. If it's a board member who possibly needs to be removed from their office, we can refer that to the Office of the Attorney General. They have board removal authority. If it's a certified teacher or an administrator that's gone seriously off the trails, we can send that to the Education Professional Standards Board. Now, we may refer something without even opening it because there may be another agency that has jurisdiction or expertise that we simply don't have. Best example of that is special education complaints. We refer those to the Kentucky Department of Education Office of Early Learning and Special Education because they do have the expertise in IDEA that we don't. Assessment and testing violations are by statute to be sent to the department. If we get discrimination claims, we send those to the Human Rights Commission or the United States Department Office of Civil Rights. A lot of times we have local issues. And when I say local issues, I don't mean that they're not important. It's just that it's something that has to be handled at the local level. The best example of that would be routine personnel matters. That's why you have a principal, to run the school. That's why you have a superintendent to run the district and the central office. So routine personnel matters are not something that we would get involved in. It's very heartbreaking, but we get a lot of complaints about bullying, and it's simply something that we can't handle from Frankfurt and 171 different school districts. So again, that's up to principals and superintendents to handle. We cannot go to districts and don't go to districts and interview students and children. We don't interview kids. That points up a whole host of problems. How young of a kid do you interview, or do you have to have mom and dad or a guardian there for it? So we simply have to rely on the locals to handle those things. Also, we're not going to open a complaint if it's the subject of litigation or we think litigation is likely. If we know there's a court case that's pending or somebody's got some sort of administration hearing going on, we don't become involved in that. Reasons are obvious. You don't need 2 or 3 different agencies looking at the same thing at the same time and getting in each other's way. And plus, as far as litigation goes, I don't want my folks, and I'm sure you don't want our folks, sitting in every circuit courtroom from Pikeville to Paducah having to testify. So we let private litigants handle their own matters, and so if there's litigation going, we don't get involved. Also, if litigation is likely, we have to make a judgment call. If somebody tells me I'm talking to an attorney or I've retained an attorney, we can pretty much see the writing on the wall, so we wouldn't get involved in the case at that stage. Now, having talked about what we don't deal with, let me briefly touch on the types of cases that we do investigate. We put them in two different groups. We call them either school-based decision-making investigations or investigative cases. As far as school-based, the topics range from the election to the school-based council. We get complaints about the principal not consulting with the council before they hire somebody. Councils may not have their policies in place or may not be following their own policies. We get a lot of complaints about the meetings themselves, kind of open meeting type cases, meeting times, notices about meetings, special called meetings, going into executive session, whether or not the council's keeping minutes. You know, if they're taking steps and business is not reflected in the minutes, legally it doesn't happen. So we try to make sure that people keep good minutes so they know what they're doing at the council level. As far as the investigative cases, we do a lot of board cases. We have questions about board members' eligibility, nepotism complaints, complaints about incompatible offices, that a board member might have another office that's not compatible with their board membership. We get complaints about board members maybe having conflicts, like financial conflicts of interest, residency. Sometimes they move from where they were elected. And we get a lot of complaints, well, not a lot of complaints, but big complaints sometimes about board members getting impermissibly involved in personnel. We deal with cases about certification of staff, our teachers certified to teach what they're teaching, our administrators properly certified. We get complaints about activity funds and fundraising. Also, we get inquiries sometimes about districts dealing with surplus property, stuff that they're no longer using. So that's just a quick overview of investigations. I know we're kind of pressed for time. I'm willing and able to answer any questions anybody has. If not, I'm sure Dr. Nelson and Ms. Smith can handle the research end and present the district data profiles.
Senator West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just have a really quick question, and this is a big question. Procedurally, two questions. First one, you're not involved in sexual misconduct types of cases generally, is that?
That's true. If we find out about that, two ways we would handle that. We would notify the district that there's a complaint about it, so the super or the principal or whoever could look into it. If we think it fits under 620.030, which is the mandatory reporting statute, if you have reasonable grounds to believe that a child is dependent, neglected, or abused, then my staff, and I've done it several times, we will make the report to the cabinet about it.
So you don't go directly to law enforcement, you go to
It could
the
be,
cabinet.
I usually go to the cabinet. The statute says the cabinet, the prosecutor,
Gotcha.
or the police, and so I often go to the cabinet hotline.
Gotcha. Switching gears totally. Procedurally, and I would say feel free to answer any way you wish. If the General Assembly could do something, not to make your job easier, but to make it better, do you have any things that you would suggest? So, for instance, through KRS, we set up protocols. You do X, and you have 30 days. You do X, Y, and on and on. Is there anything we could change or tweak to make things better for OEA to properly investigate things, to bring transparency, things to light?
I don't think so off the top of my head, no. I mean, we just have to, I have to probably do a better job of moving cases along. Sometimes we get some cases that take too long, but
None of that's
That's,
because of artificial things that the General Assembly.
no, it's not because of General Assembly. No, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I could ask the General Assembly to do that would make things easier. It's just like I said, we're no busier than anybody else at LRC, but it is a busy job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions? All right, you may continue.
Thank you.
Good morning. Again, I'm Deborah Nelson, Research Division Director for OEA. I'll provide you with a brief summary of Research Division work in 2024. First, I'll review some statutory direction for OEA that is relevant specifically to the Research Division. KRS 7410 requires the office generally to monitor the elementary and secondary public education system. EARS directs that monitoring through its adoption of an annual research agenda. Upon direction of EARS, through this agenda or otherwise, OEA may also be requested to verify the accuracy of reports, validate the state assessment system, or review the finance system. As you can see, the statute really emphasizes the role of our office in ensuring that the General Assembly has access to accurate information. Most of OEA's research functions involve carrying out the EARS adopted research agenda. We do this by reviewing any data reported by KDE or published in reports, as well as by analyzing the complete data sets that inform those reports. These may be derived from the student information system, state financial software, or even student-level assessment data. Our staff include those with data programming skills and those knowledgeable about data standards and practices that guide the entry of that data at the district or school levels. Our reports often contain findings or recommendations related to data integrity, as well as contextual information important in interpreting the data. And as you'll hear in the next presentation, the annual production of the OEA's district data profiles, or the DDP, also involves issues of monitoring and trends and data issues. In addition to carrying out the research report, staff fulfill short legislative requests and, as time permits, generally monitor KDE meetings and reports. In 2024, OEA research staff included 1 research director and 5 analysts. One of those analysts, OEA's longtime programmer and database administrator, retired last September. At that time, OEA initiated a collaboration with OSIT, whose analysts and database administrator have been assisting OEA to upgrade and maintain data programming necessary for the district data profiles. You'll hear about that in a minute, and many of our reports. I'd like to thank Jonathan Harris at OSIT for making that possible and helping us to ensure that OEA's extensive database of more than 20 years of data is maintained at industry standards. This year we have 4 analysts and have welcomed Ben Leo to the team, joining our experienced analyst Sabrina Smith, who you'll hear from in a minute, and Chris Riley and Allison Stevens. In addition to working on research reports, our analysts are being trained to carry out the complex coding of our large data sets necessary for the DDP and to meet legislative requests. In 2024, OEA published the Kentucky District Data Profiles for 2023 and the School District Governance Models and Interventions Report, which found that state and local board governance models in Kentucky are largely similar to those in other states. It noted policies related to district size that exist in some other states, including those that encourage consolidation of smaller districts and those that permit secession of individual communities from larger districts or mayor control of those districts. It found that these policies have achieved intended results in some cases, but have faced challenges or proven ineffective in others. The Student Achievement Report highlighted the critical role played by principals and teacher leadership teams in ensuring that schools have strong instructional and behavioral systems, a positive school climate, and teacher working conditions that attract and retain teachers. It noted that many of these foundational elements of school success are underemphasized in school improvement planning required of schools and districts. It also identified some discipline issues faced in relatively lower achieving schools that informed this year's research agenda, which includes the district data profiles we are presenting today, an analysis of student discipline data in Kentucky schools for which we have conducted site visits and are currently surveying principals, and a brief review of early childhood regional training centers. Finally, OEA was awarded an NCSL Notable Document Award for its 2023 Kentucky Public School Staffing Shortages Report. This was OEA's 10th such award. That concludes the OEA Annual Research Division report, and I'd be happy to take any of your questions about that, or we can move on to the DDP.
Senator Neal.
It's probably obvious. I probably should know. When did this particular division, when was it established? The year?
The Research Division,
Yes.
well, it was here when I came, which was 2007. And I'm not sure, Sabrina,
Originally created, we looked at those old reports from 1990.
Yeah.
I think it was originally established when OEA came into being in 1990.
It was more of a monitoring situation.
Okay.
but I will say that there was, I think, a sort of upgrade of it around that time, because prior to, I don't know the year the statute was changed, but the statute first said that OEA will monitor everything. And that was vague and too much, and we just didn't have the staff to do it. So at some point, the a year's adoption of the research agenda was introduced, and I think that was around 2005. And that's when I think we had more, sort of upgraded the research staff in order to fulfill that agenda.
Thank you.
Senator West.
Yes, I know there's been this big push for a while to go paperless. This is a lot of paper, the profile. Are we, I'm going from memory, I think we put one of these on every legislator's desk. Is that correct?
After it's approved.
Okay, so is that going to continue to occur? I'm for it if we do it, but
I believe so, because leadership usually likes the hand copy so that they can carry it around with them and they don't have to get online and look at the online version. So
Right.
unless you all tell us to stop putting,
Can you come up to the table, please, and so we can? Yeah, that's okay. So we can, folks at home can hear, and so can we. Identify yourself and then go ahead and continue. Thank
Hi,
you.
my name is Sabrina Smith. Basically, we will continue to print this because it is something that leadership, staff, and the other legislators enjoy getting the paper copy so that they do not have to get online and look online.
But
So
they're-
unless you tell us to stop printing it, we will continue to.
no, that's why I brought it up. I just want to make sure that's going to continue.
Yes.
I think it's a great thing. It's forces legislators to see it, and there's just this answers a lot of questions about it. If you have a question about if you got, like, I've got 7 counties and part of one, so if I have any questions, I just flip.
This is a lot easier to look at one specific district. When you're looking online, it's better for sorting and things like
Sure.
that, but you
Yeah.
can't pull up just one district and look at all of these data pieces. So the paper copy actually provides a better look at each district total data points.
And I think if it was online only, it would be out of sight, out of mind. And it just kind of forces legislators to kind of see it. But thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions before we continue? All right. Thank you for those answers.
You're welcome.
For the record, you want to introduce yourself again for this report?
I'm Sabrina Smith, OEA analyst.
All right. You may continue.
Good morning again. I'm Deborah Nelson, Research Division Director for OEA. The district data profiles was originally published in 2008 and has been requested by EARS for the last 18 years. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge Sabrina Smith, who helped to spearhead development of the original report and has truly guided its production every year since. With the retirement of OEA's longtime data programmer last year, Sabrina has devoted the year to shepherding this project into the next generation. She was assisted by all of OEA's current analysts, but especially by OSIT data programmer Josh Allen, without whom this year's report would not have been possible. I'll begin with a few background slides and then pass the presentation on to Sabrina for a review of the data and discussion of some data issues that apply to the report this year. As you know, the DDP provides a snapshot of education data for the state's 171 school districts and a compilation of those data for the Kentucky page. In addition, the report contains comparative data on similar metrics for Kentucky's surrounding states and the nation. From the huge volume of education data available, OEA selects those metrics that provide the most concise or reliable data, or data that may be of special interest to the General Assembly. Much of the data in the report are taken directly from district data reported by KDE and posted on the department's school report card or elsewhere on its website. These data are compiled by OEA for easy visual access. In addition, the DDP contains many data points calculated by OEA using original data sets received from KDE. OEA includes its own calculations for data points that may be of interest but are not currently available from KDE. In some cases, OEA's calculations are similar to some of KDE's but adjusted slightly to aid in comparability across districts or in comparison to national data. During production of the report, OEA, and by that I mean Sabrina, communicates with KDE staff in attempting to understand outliers or unexplained trends. These may be explained by data entry issues at the district level or reporting issues in a particular year. In those cases, KDE is often able to provide OEA with updated data for inclusion in the DDP. This year's profiles are organized as they have been in the past, with a few exceptions. We've moved the data dictionary and sources from the introduction to a technical appendix, and we've added an appendix which includes data notes necessary for understanding some of the notations or trends you'll find in this year's report. As a reminder, almost all of the data you see in the print version is also available in an online interactive version of the DDP, which was developed by LRC's research director, Dr. Bart Ligori. The interactive version makes it easier to compare data among districts or across years through geographic maps by allowing users to sort from highest to lowest for each metric and providing 10-year trend data for some of the metrics. As you'll see on the next slide, the interactive version is now available on a special portion of the LRC publications page. The interactive version for 2024 data will be available shortly and no later than next month. Please note, however, that the 10-year trend data for those portions of the profiles that are calculated by OEA will be delayed, as OEA is in the process of coding previous year's staffing and finance data for export. Here's where you can find previous interactive versions and where the 2024 interactive will be posted soon. This is really a useful tool. Once you learn it, I think you'll be able to track information easily for all of your districts, and OEA staff are happy to assist with a quick tutorial on the different ways you can use the tool. I'll pass the presentation on to Sabrina for a discussion of the data in the profiles. This will include some snapshots of the data that we've pulled out for this year. These snapshots just illustrate the types of visualizations or analyses that can be compiled from the data in the print or online profiles. As a reminder, our staff can assist in pulling together district comparative analyses or trend analyses on any of the data you find in the print or online versions of the profiles.
Thank you, Deborah. Here's a bird's eye view of the profiles just to illustrate the general layout. Each profile has 2 pages. As space permits, each page contains trend data for the previous year and up to 10 years of data. Page 1 has an overview and trend section shaded in yellow, which contains a variety of student demographic and other data, and a staffing section that includes a variety of staffing counts, ratios, and teacher salary data. The data points in the red box are calculated by OEA staff using original KDE data sets that contains data submitted by districts for all certified and classified staff. Before we leave this slide, I'll point out that you can find the 2024 starting salary for teachers on the top row of each district's certified salary schedule for rank 3, 0 years of experience. We'll be looking at teacher salary data later in the presentation. The second page includes a finance section that reports district expenditure data by pupil and by function and district revenues by source, along with SEEK distributions and tax information, which are both helpful in understanding state and local tax revenue generated by districts. The performance section includes proficiency rates from Kentucky's summative assessment, ACT scores, accountability ratings, and post-secondary readiness rates. Much of the data on this page is calculated by OEA from data sets received from KDE, including district annual financial reports and student assessment. Here are some examples of data points calculated by OEA. I'll mention just a few trends associated with these data points, which I would be happy to discuss further in the question section. In keeping with a goal set by the General Assembly in the 2019 Kentucky School Safety Resiliency Act, the ratio of pupils to counselors has decreased over time, but has not yet reached the goal of 1 counselor for every 250 students. The percentage of teachers advancing from rank 3 for beginning teachers to rank 2, which is a more advanced rank with higher salaries, has declined in the last decade. Rank 2 requires a master's degree or its equivalent. I will now move to explain some of the data snapshots we have highlighted in the body of the presentation. We'll begin with trend data in Adjusted Average Daily Attendance, or AADA, the number that forms the basis of the SEEK calculation. AADA is a measure that reflects both the numbers of students enrolled in a district and the attendance rates of those students. Statewide, AADA declined from 6.4% from 2015 to 2024. But trends varied by districts. In 105 districts, AADA declined by 5% or more. In 20 districts, AADA increased by 5% or more. The remaining districts increased or decreased by less than 5%. This map shows the percentage change in adjusted average daily attendance by district between 2015 and 2024. Districts in orange declined in AADA, with the darkest orange district showing the greatest percentage decreases. Districts colored in blue increased in AADA. The districts colored darkest blue showed the greatest percentage increases. Most of the districts with greatest increases were small independent districts such as Eminence Independent, Walton Verona Independent, Murray Independent, and Beechwood Independent. County districts with the greatest percentage increases were Robertson County, Warren, Spencer, Scott, and Boyle. Cloverport Independent increased the most, 227%, due to the large influx of students attending the Kentucky Virtual School, which the district opened in 2024. Appendix E includes data notes on issues associated with recording, staffing, and finance data in 2024 for Cloverport Independent. KDE has advised the district on appropriate data collections for the 2025 school year. I'd be happy to discuss these issues in the question period. We will turn now to student trends that have led to increases in calculations of SEEK revenue exceptional child counts. This slide shows the number of students identified with a disability that qualified them for special education services in 2015 and 2024. Districts receive additional SEEK funds for these students. For funding purposes, these students are grouped into 3 broad categories, shown in the left column of the table. From greatest to least in additional funding received, these are severe, moderate, and speech-language impairments. A few examples of students included in the severe category are students with autism, traumatic brain injury, or emotional behavior disorders. And a few examples of students included in the moderate category are those with ADHD and various learning disabilities such as dyslexia. The total percentage of all students identified in any of these categories increased from 13% in 2015 to 16% in 2024. Increases in students identified for special education have required associated increases in special education teachers, many of whom are entering teaching through alternative routes, and other personnel required to provide services for these students. Increases in identification rates have also resulted in substantial increases in seat calculations for revenue associated with these students. We will now move to look at salary data relevant to attracting teachers generally, not just special education teachers. This map shows starting teacher salaries by district in 2024. Lower values are shown in lighter blue and higher values in darker blue. They range from a low of $35,150 in Jackson Independent to a high of $49,555 in Fayette County, followed closely by Jefferson and Kenton counties. Differences in starting teacher salaries are largely reflected of local labor markets. Districts located in areas with higher salaries, generally for comparable educated workers, must pay more to attract teachers. As noted in the 2023 OEA report on the effectiveness and efficiency of Kentucky school districts, districts whose salaries are lower than those in similar labor markets or are in easy driving distance to higher paying districts experience greater difficulty attracting and retaining teachers. Next, we'll look at Kentucky's average starting teacher salary compared to surrounding states and the nation, taking national labor markets into consideration. This table, which you can find in Appendix A of the report, shows that at about $40,000, Kentucky's average starting teacher salary ranks near the bottom of the states, below most of its surrounding states and far below the U.S. average. In that appendix, OEA also included a table that adjusts teacher salaries to reflect differences among states in the value of those salaries related to local labor markets. The table uses the Comparable Wage Index for Teachers, called CWIFT, which is a measure developed by the National Center of Education Statistics to facilitate these comparisons. The CWIFT is like a cost of living type of adjustment, but specifically for salaries. After the CWIFT adjustment for local labor markets, Kentucky is slightly above the U.S. The CWIFT is also available at the county level and can be used to show Kentucky district salaries relative to local labor markets. OEA's previously mentioned effectiveness and efficiency report uses the CWIFT to categorize districts by labor market cost. We'll conclude with some data notes contained in Appendix E of the report. OEA included this appendix in order to explain some unique features of the data affecting comparisons among districts, such as those previously mentioned for Cloverport Independent, or interpreting state trends. I will explain some of the information in that appendix, which helps to explain trends in state revenue, considering effects of additional payments for the teachers' retirement system. This figure from the Kentucky State page shows a drop in district state revenue from 2023 to 2024. As explained in Appendix E, this decrease reflects a substantial one-time payment of $479 million recorded in the 2023 school year, which was made by the General Assembly on behalf of school districts for teacher retirement system. As required by government accounting standards, all on-behalf payments should be recorded by the district as state revenue. You can see the effects of these one-time payments, which amounted to about $800 per pupil in the green bar indicated by the arrow, which is 2023 state revenue. Appendix E goes into greater detail about the one-time appropriations for the TRS, which was recorded as revenue in 2023. Note also that the additional on-behalf revenue recorded in 2023 was also reflected in additional expenditures for that year. Relevant to looking at 10-year state revenue trends, the appendix also explains increased state revenue beginning in 2018 and continuing each year since. Associated with additional allocations from the General Assembly to increase the long-term solvency of the teacher retirement system by decreasing the unfunded liability of the system. Unfunded liability is the gap between the system's assets and its projected future obligation to retired and active teachers. This concludes our presentation, and we will be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Representative Truitt.
Thank you very much. I love our report that you all put out every year. It's very handy to have when you're talking about districts and like Senator West, I represent 5 different districts, so it's one of those things. It's nice to kind of compare those, so I appreciate that. Going back to, you mentioned Cloverport. All right. I want to ask a question a little bit about that. So I went back and I looked at their data, and they didn't show any data for this past year. So I'm just wondering, in your opinion, why is that the case? Is it hard to come up with this data that you requested from them?
Can I explain what happened with
Sure.
Cloverport? So basically what happened with Cloverport was when they first started, the online school, all of the students are being captured in the student data. However, they began with contracting out the staff, which in January, KDE told them that they had to become their staff if they were certified employees. So none of the staffing data was included on their professional staffing data or classified staffing data that was submitted to us. So the reason we blanked it out, for instance, is if you looked at their per pupil teacher ratio, it was 91.5 students to each teacher. And additionally, another data point just to show you that it was just really wonky data was that there was 1,630 students to counselors. So we decided to not show it because it wouldn't be very comparable and trendable because you're missing those teachers in that data sets, and the data reflects anything that's in that staffing section. Does that help?
A little bit. So you're saying the data that you had was inaccurate?
It was incomplete for any staffing of professional staff, which is your teachers, certified employees, and classified.
Would it be complete now, you think?
It is supposed to be. Those are submitted each year on October the 1st as of September the 15th. So there was no fixing the last year data. I think KDE just told them to start recording them properly and reporting them correctly. So we're hopeful. I did have conversations with the superintendent, and he gave me estimates as to which staff they had during that time period, but we did not feel comfortable adjusting their data because we wouldn't have known like how much salaries they were making or anything like that. So we chose to block that out because it would not be comparable in that year.
One follow-up, Senator. So, Cloverport was a hot topic this past session. And, so the only thing I would ask from OEA or whoever, KDE, see, we got the commissioner back there in the back. But, this upcoming year, we would like to have some accurate data, from all districts. So I'm not sure what we can do to help you in that, but I would love to have accurate data. Is that something that maybe once session starts, that maybe we would have, maybe something that we could add to our nice profile packet that you guys give us? Maybe a sheet with just that district or any districts that's missing data. How many other districts are there?
There are a couple districts that are missing data. Well, of course, everybody's missing data for the 2020 adjusted average daily attendance because of COVID and all of that. So that's blanked out. And then we have an email into KDE on preschool for 1 year. There are some districts, it was 2020 as well, but we had like Scott County, as an example, did not have any preschool students, and we know they have several. So there are some asterisks in those districts for the 2020 year that, and KDE is looking into, do they have that data? Do they not? Can we update it? Like I said, we could provide you all the information we received from the superintendent at Cloverport as far as the 2024 staffing that they had available. That would be something, but from my understanding, KDE did talk to them, and the 2025 data is supposed to be reflected correctly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Senator West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back to when you did the average teacher salary comparisons.
Yes.
When we're compared to other states, is that the numbers that you have? Is that just salary, or it gets kind of wonky because some other states figure in pension monies into their calculation. Are we comparing apples to apples, or do other states have some of their pension stuff inside the salary calculations?
As far as for average starting teacher salary, it is supposed to be just that.
Just
so we
salary.
should be comparable. It does get a little difficult when you try to look at salaries and benefits for some states. It makes you wonder what is going on, because some of our surrounding states, one in particular, has higher teacher salaries, but yet when you look at total expenses, their expenses are less than ours. So we're not for sure if some of these states are truly capturing all of their expenses, and that's something we've not been assigned to look at any point. It would be interesting to see some of that, but currently we have not been able to.
The only point of the
dive
question
into
is it would be nice to have apples to apples. You know, if some of their numbers include pensions, then that's a totally different number than us.
Yes.
Along those same lines, when you talked about the one-time TRS investment, I was a little bit confused because we do, you have the statutorily required contribution, and then you had the contribution that we give above and beyond the SRC. And last time I checked, I thought it was about $500 million a year is our normal running contribution, which should increase in the future. I thought those were ongoing. I didn't know those were one time, and that's where I was a little confused.
There was only one time. What slide is that?
Is that what we did last budget, where we had the normal SRC plus, and then we did a one-time bump?
Okay, it actually happened in fiscal year 2022. This slide shows you what you all have been appropriating to teacher retirement. The bottom line is, in green, is what is currently being spent for current teachers that are currently working. The orange line is what you all are putting in above and beyond, additionally, to bring down that unfunded mandate or liability. The blue line is actually what is paid. The majority of the funds, I will say, is mostly when a district employee that is paying into teacher retirement retires. Districts are responsible for paying 30% of their sick leave. So not only that, they are responsible, of course, that's part of teacher retirement's cost. So the district has to pay theirs, the state has to pick up theirs. So the blue line is that match on that teacher retirement. And from what I understand is for years, you all have been paying this across 10 years time, which also had interest built in at about 7%. So what happened is you all in 2022 decided, you know what, we're going to save some interest here. Let's pay this money down so we are not paying that interest rate. And so then that's why you see that big drop in the blue the next year.
It's coming back to me now. Is that the green box dollar investment
Yes.
in 2022?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I should say that these don't match what's recorded on district annual financial reports because government standing account standards allow you up to a year to record that. So as I mentioned in the report, the big bump happened in 2023, but you all actually allocated it in 2022. So anything on this screen that was in 1 year, districts actually recorded it the next year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But Senator West, as far as the ongoing allocations for the unfunded liability, which is in orange, yes, that was first reflected in 2018, and then you can see that is ongoing.
Could I have a follow-up, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Briefly. So for clarification, the orange is what I would call SRC, statutorily required contribution. The green is what we do above and beyond.
That's for the sick
Or it's-
leave, yes, the green box. The orange is the ongoing additional above the statutory rate.
Gotcha. Okay, so it gets kind of wonky.
It
So the
get-
SRC and the above is combined sometimes. But
Yes.
I'm with you now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Senator Tishner.
Thank you, guys. This is my favorite book ever. Like, I love these. They're so helpful to really evaluate across the state and look at the years past. Couple of questions, just follow up kind of in the vein of Senator West's questions. Do we track any administrative salaries at all and size of administration in districts?
You will see in your book that we show number of administrators broken
Right.
out by the district and the ones at the school level.
And so, but you're not tracking like average administrative pay, average super pay, average principal pay. Does that just vary? And
Yeah, that varies. We do not put it in this book because there's so many different data points. We can always
Right, yeah.
adjust things. So if there is something that you all would be interested in that you would like to see added or something taken off, as you know, we will have to make trades because
there's not room.
There's not room.
I see that. It would be interesting to see the average, maybe superintendent pay compared to the size of districts, something like that. I don't know. We can maybe talk about that. It'd be interesting to know. Another question, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. So as I started looking at these books over the last several years, I noticed a change under discipline where there used to be listed suspensions and expulsions. Expulsions got removed and was replaced with bullying and harassment, which obviously are important issues that I think we should track. But my question is, are these cases of bullying and harassment, are they the disciplinary actions as a result of bullying and harassment?
These are the events that each district has recorded in their Infinite Campus, the student tracking system for bullying and harassment.
So it could be safe to say some of those incidents aren't necessarily being disciplined. They're just being recorded.
These are
Just
not the
recorded.
outcomes.
Not the outcomes of
That's correct.
that. Okay. Thank you. Oh, actually, I have one more. I'm
Quickly,
so sorry.
please.
Okay. Science. I see obviously a lot of a lot of districts don't have anything recorded under science for 2024, but some do. And then I see the state average. Can you explain how that data?
Yes. So that has to do with FERPA reporting requirements. So as you know, proficiency rates, and you'll see that mostly at the high school, are extremely low on that assessment. And so there are many districts where all or almost all are in one category, which is novice or apprentice. And so the rules are when you have so many students in one category that you know what their score is, then those are not reported. So when you see the score not reported, if you can look at a district and you can say everybody in this district was novice, then the federal regulations say you can't report that, because then you know an individual student's score. So when you see it blanked out, it means you had so many students in one category that you could guess what category an individual student was in.
That is so interesting. So then the state total comes from what number?
The state total can be reported. It's all the
Okay.
students in the state.
So
Because
that is
there's so many
accurate.
students that you can't guess. But because of so many students being concentrated in one performance category, if the district were to, or a school were to report that, you would be able to guess an individual student's score, and that's because of the unusual concentration in those categories.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, folks, before we move on to our next presenter, if there's not any other questions for our presenters right here, we do have to take care of some housekeeping issues that we need to get the last minutes from the November 8th meeting approved. I have a motion and a second. Any changes? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. Ayes have it. All right, we also need to, for documentation purposes, we need to have a motion to accept our first presentation of the day from the Office of Education Accountability and its annual report. Do I have a motion to accept that report? Motion made by Representative Truitt, second by Representative Riley. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion passes. All right, and the second presentation that we just had from the Office of Education Accountability and District Profiles for the school year 2024. Do I have a motion to accept that report into the minutes? Motion made by Truitt, second by Senator Tishner. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. Ayes have it. All right. Thank you for that momentarily lapse there. We were rough start there, and we had to go back and circle back. But I want to thank the presenters for the last two presentations. We are very appreciative of the data, and I'm sure our colleagues will dive into this. And if we have any further questions, we will reach out to either one of those organizations. So please, at this time, we have our last presentation for the day, an update from the Educational Professional Standards Board. Please make sure that your mics are turned on. Please identify yourselves for the record, and you may begin.
Good morning. Todd Allen, Deputy Commissioner and General Counsel for the Department of Education.
Good morning. I'm Cassie Trueblood, Counsel for the Education Professional Standards Board. And thank you so much for the opportunity to present today and provide you with a brief update from the Education Professional Standards Board. The EPSB is a statutory board created by the General Assembly in KRS 161028 and has been tasked with setting the standards and requirements for obtaining and maintaining educator certification in the Commonwealth. The board is made up primarily of practicing educators. We have 9 teacher representatives, 2 administrators, 3 representatives from higher education, 2 ex officio members, as well as 1 local school board member. We've also included for you a list of our current appointees, and we are happy to have with us today our EPSB Chair, Amber Snell, and Vice Chair, CJ Fryer, who are both practicing classroom teachers. And while the board's authority covers many things such as educator preparation and educator certification. Today we're going to focus on the educator case process. And the board has been given the authority to take action against a certificate for any violations of Kentucky Revised Statute 161-120, subsection 1, which does include violations of the Professional Code of Ethics. And this is being looked at from the certification standpoint. It is separate from the district's disciplinary process. And with that, the specific sanctions that the board can take are also outlined in statute and include revocation and suspension, which are both defined by statute. Revocation is a permanent forfeiture of that underlying certificate, though it can be for a set period of time, whereas the suspension is a temporary invalidation of the certificate for a set period of time as well. That is anywhere from 1 day to 2 years at the end. And this seems to be timed for some reason. I think it's telling me to hurry it up. But with that suspension, once the educator has complied with any requirements at the end of that period of suspension, they can get that certificate back. With a revocation, if it's for a set period of time, the educator would have to reestablish their eligibility for certification. Thank you. Once they have completed all of the requirements of the revocation period. Then the board also has the ability to impose probationary, supervisory conditions upon a certificate, issue a written reprimand or admonishment, or any combination of these actions. I would like to note that for a certificate to have a revocation, suspension, or probationary conditions, that can only occur through a final order where there has been a full administrative hearing, or an agreed order where the parties have agreed to that sanction. And the board has stated in 16 KAR 1030 that they may take action to ensure that an educator has an understanding of the professional duties and also to protect students, parents, school personnel, and school officials. And this process does start with a completed complaint, which we receive from a variety of sources, but the majority of those complaints do come from superintendents. And the reason for that is that the superintendent has a statutory duty to report educator misconduct for the certified employees in his or her district. We've also provided you with an overview of the process that is a little condensed to put it all on one slide there, so you also have a PDF to be able to look at that a little more closely. This process was amended by House Bill 300 in the 2024 legislative session to really set forth the process for handling the complaint and some very strict timelines. Because of those, our board now meets about every 3 weeks. They do still have full in-person meetings on even-numbered months, and then they have added in virtual meetings that focus on these closed session reviews to ensure that no cases are dismissed for failure to meet timelines. Because they are practicing educators, those meetings tend to happen on Monday afternoons at 4 o'clock. And I'm happy to report that because of the dedication of our board, no cases have been dismissed for failure to meet timelines. The board also has specific actions that it can take when reviewing these. Those are included on the slide as well. And then when reviewing, they are also looking at certain factors to determine the reasonableness of a sanction. And when taking action, the board does try to take a restorative approach when possible. For example, for a first-time violation where it was a minor violation, a lapse in judgment, the educator has indicated remorse and has already taken some remedial training, the board may find that a dismissal is appropriate with no additional sanctions. However, there are more serious violations, such as 161-120B there that is listed on your screen. Having sexual contact with a student or minor, even if that is a first-time offense, that is one for which the board is only interested in the permanent revocation of a certificate. We also have tried to provide the committee with some data just to give you a brief overview of the numbers that we are seeing each year. It is important to note with this that complaints received does not result in a case opened for every complaint that is received. Some complaints may have allegations that are for conduct that does not fall under the board's authority. There may be some insufficient evidence in those, and then in some instances you will receive multiple complaints for the same underlying conduct. You may receive that from the superintendent, from the parent, from the media, and that will result in just one case being initiated. But you did hear from OEA earlier with the full number of certified educators in the state. And this is only a very small percentage of educators that will ever come before the EPSB. An even smaller number of those are going to rise to the level of revocation or suspension. And so we do like to end every presentation with the notice that the majority of educators in this state are good and ethical educators and will never have a case before the EPSB. We did provide a PDF with this and some additional case data, and happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Representative Bojanowski.
Okay, so the top of all the teachers' concerns right now are the impacts of Senate Bill 181. And while I know there are definitely cases of individuals grooming and preying on children, my question is how many of those cases and situations regard simply an educator in their building? So my question is, the bill reads right now that it would be statewide. If I'm a teacher and I wouldn't be able to communicate with my neighbor's kid who might go to another school or be in another complete district, how many of the actual cases of predatory behavior occur with individuals relating to children who are not in their school building?
Unfortunately, I do not have that number for you. I will also, may have to defer to Todd with this as well. He has done a lot of work on some questions that we're receiving regarding Senate Bill 181 and its implementation. But there is, in reading the statute as a whole, it seems to imply that that prohibition is between communication with a teacher and a student within the same district, because that is the only way in which you're able to get the parent consent forms. Happy to look into the case numbers that you have requested a little bit further to see what data we can get there. Anecdotally, I would say most do involve being within the same district.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation today. All right, folks, I believe that concludes our presentations for the day. If there's no other business before this committee, I need a motion to adjourn. Seconded? Made? We are adjourned.